I'm Katie Wells, host of the Maximized Minimalist podcast. I escaped the hamster wheel of modern-day motherhood, overwhelmed by clutter and buried under the mental load. Now I live in a home that feels calm, manageable, and made for real life. I have margin in my days, energy for who matters most, and time for slow mornings and silly dance parties in the kitchen with my family. With over 5 million listens, the show has helped women around the world turn their homes into their happy place. Around here, we simplify for more peace, more presence, and more joy. We choose grace over guilt and progress over perfection. And we believe your home should give back more than it takes. I'm here to help you do the same. Come along with me and my guests as we share the real stories, habits, and strategies that help you lighten the load from the inside out. Pull up a seat, friend, and let's do this together. Ready, set, simplify. Welcome back to Maximize Minimalist, Megan Sumrell. Woo! I feel like, I got the pom-poms out. I'm ready to go. This is one of my favorite topics. You were one of my favorite people. So let's go.
It's such an honor and a treat. Anytime you invite me in, your community is amazing. I'm obsessed with your podcast. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming back. Okay, so I think since last time you were here, we have a new little tradition. And we kick off with a fun question. And that question is, if you could magically declutter one thing from your life forever, no effort required, what would that be?
You're going to laugh, but it's the flippin' Tupperware cabinet. I feel like all I do is reorganize it every 2 weeks, and I don't understand it. I just don't understand.
You must have a little gnome that lives in there, and after you get it all stacked and organized, he's like, and then he undoes it all.
I'm convinced because I usually am the one who puts it all away as well. And so I'm like, and then I open it, I'm like, where, what? Yeah. So as silly as that sounds, it would be that.
So a permanently simplified, organized Tupperware, you'd be like, yeah, I mean, that does sound nice.
It does. And every piece has a lid that goes with it, and they all work, and they're all right where they should be all the time.
Okay. I think after listening to this, we might get some more answers that are like, amen, sister. It's one of those things it's like a little low grade stressor annoyance. So, okay, cool. I'm into that. And you're right. I did laugh. You know me well. Okay. Super excited. All right. We're going to dive in. You recently read a book you were telling me about. And so I want to dive into that because you've always said this, and I've always appreciated this about you, that women need a different approach to productivity. And now, I mean, obviously years later, you've been in business for a while. Years later, there's more science backing that up. And I know you've been diving into these books and research about the female brain. And you and I nerd out over this stuff. So I would love to start by asking you what stood out to you from the research or books you've been reading. And did it surprise you, or did it more confirm what you've always known and felt to be true?
Yeah, it was one of those super validating moments, right? Because it's one of those things where, I know from experience and from working with thousands of women and hearing their stories as well, we all are, and by we, I mean women, experience the same challenges when it comes to managing everything, competing for our time. And so when you hear it over and over and over and over again, you have to start to wonder, is there a biological component to this? Why is it that we are all sharing this experience and our male counterparts aren't? I feel like there's only so much that we can say is coming from societal pressures, which 100% there is. But I'm like, wow, societal pressures have shifted over how many years, yet these same things continue. When I talk to my mom, they plagued my mom 60 years ago when it was different societal pressures than today. And so someone had shared this book called The Female Brain with me. And they're like, I really think, and I honestly think anyone raising a daughter should read this book because it starts from the womb all the way up through menopause and beyond, of actual studying of what is going on in our brain and comparing it to the male counterpart. And so there were two things in particular that really stuck out when I read this that is showing, oh, okay, it isn't just societal stuff. Our brains are actually working differently than our male counterparts. That has a direct impact, as one, on the mental load, and two, on our need to multitask all the time. So if you're cool, I kind of dig in on what that is. All right.
Yes.
So we all know about the mental load that, particularly if you are a caregiver, but even if you're not, like, think about all the things. I mean, I used to carry the mental load of coworkers, whatever it is. And people will say things like, oh, it's a default, or, we're quote wired that way, or it's solely about hormones. Well, the part of our brain that handles the emotional regulation, because with a T, I always forget the scientific names of it. But when you study the male brain versus the female brain, that portion of our brain is significantly larger than our male counterparts. So it is occupying more space in our brain, which is why it is occupying more space in our thought processes.
Okay.
And so as we are experiencing things, as information is coming at us, as people are requesting our time, all of that, we are running it through a much larger emotional center than our male counterparts, which is why we naturally and on autopilot take on a lot more of that emotional component. It's not because, if I'm sitting all day with part of my brain thinking about my daughter because I know it's an emotional day for her, and I'm just, I'm looking at my watch, oh, the test is starting now or whatever, and my husband's not, it's not because he doesn't care, but that portion of his brain is not as large as mine. And so it gets compartmentalized so much easier, right? Now, when she comes home and brings it up, then he's all back engaged again, but we're not sharing the same experience of it taking up mental space because it's taking up physical space that way. And so seeing that, like learning about that, I thought it was fascinating because so many people say, oh, it's just a nurturing, it's a this. No, it's because our brain is designed to carry a lot more of that space. And the other really interesting thing is, we always say women are better multitaskers than men, right? And it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because multitasking is a terrible thing. In some situations, it's really beneficial in others. And I hear women talk about squirrel brain a lot, right? I'm over here, but then I think about that, and then I'm over there, and then I go into the room and I can't remember why I just walked in there. Well, when we have that, like, shifting thoughts of ideas or desire to stop what we're doing and start something else or try and tackle two things at once, it's because of the way the right side of our brain and the left side of our brain communicate. So there's little, I like to think about almost like a little wire connecting the two, and there's information going back and forth. Well, when they study this in the female brain versus the male brain, that conversation is happening way faster and way more often than in the male brain, which is what triggers, you're going, oh, I got to do this. Oh, I wonder how that's feeling. Oh, I've got to do that. God, I talked to my mom, all that. It's that right and left side firing back and forth way more than our male counterparts, which is why we are led to do those things, which is why our brain feels like squirrel brain. It's not because we're disorganized. It's not because we can't, quote, get it together. Our brain is literally doing that to us.
I have to say, I always knew our brains were bigger and faster. So
I love that somehow. We just have bigger, faster brains. What can I say?
But it's interesting, right? The biological standpoint. Okay, so you mentioned the mental load. I'd like to hit on that. So, I need to call my mom, the birthday gifts, the school forms or summer forms, right? Or like remembering what needs to happen and when, and that squirrel brain. And it's this invisible weight, but it shows up in how we plan too. Like if we go to sit down and plan, we're like, and all of a sudden squirrel brain. So how do you think, like, just relating to that biological standpoint related to the brain and mental load, how do you think that impacts our time and also our sense of control? Because I feel like when my mind is doing that, it's like all of a sudden 30 minutes is gone. And I'm like, what did I even do? Where did the time go?
Even on that control part, right? If we're spiraling in that space, we do start to feel out of control, right? Everything feels bigger than it needs to feel. Everything becomes urgent. Everything becomes a priority. Everything becomes like, suddenly the annoying Tupperware cabinet is the thing that breaks the camel's back. And you're like, the whole house is a complete mess. You're like, it's one cabinet. Like it's really not that bad. And there's so much science behind the power of putting pencil to paper and the importance of getting stuff out of our brain and onto not digital, but actually writing with pencil to paper. There's so much studies on how that improves your memory. It improves like reducing anxiety, all of these kinds of things. And this is why I always encourage women, the best gift that you can give yourself when you are in one of those kind of mental load spirals, as we all experience, is to take a minute, get a pencil and paper, and just start writing, making the, quote, the list of everything that's occupying your thoughts right now. What is it that's swirling around in there? I got to call my mom. I got to do the birthday present. I mean, crazy stuff will come up. Oh my gosh, I haven't even thought about spring break next year. That's 10 months away, right? But these things happen because all of a sudden you're like, yeah, last year we couldn't get where we wanted because we waited too long. So I got to make sure I get that on the calendar, and literally just get it out to where you can see it. Then I tell people, walk away from it for a minute. Like go breathe, take a 10-minute lap around the neighborhood, do something. Don't jump into now prioritizing it right away because you're still in that anxious energy. So you've gotten it out of your head and you say, I'm going to come back to this in like 10 minutes. Then when you come back and you start looking at everything, I always find myself laughing. I'm like, okay, I put down like 10 things on here that really I don't need to be worried about this right now. But then the key is having the place where you do put it to say, now I'm setting up the reminders for myself of when I do need to worry about it. So like even the silly spring break example, I went on a trip last week. Anytime I'm gone and come home, I have a mental load spiral. Always, I know it without fail because I feel I'm out of my routine. I'm out of the daily whatever. So I started spiraling last weekend with, quote, all the things. So I went and did that. Went for a walk, came back. So I saw one of the things on there was like, I'm panicking about our spring break for next year. Again, it's 10, 11 months away. Well, then I was like, hey, you know what? I am going to tackle that in October. So I went to my planner and I went to October and I made a note, a reminder to myself, start looking at spring break. So now I've shown, because again, I'm doing it all with paper, my brain is seeing we have a plan. So now I can take this out of my mental load spiral because I've tucked it in somewhere and I'm showing my brain, I got you. We don't need to worry about this anymore. And so if we can create just little systems like that for ourselves, because we can't stop our brain from doing it, the best gift we can give it is to show it, I got it. We're good. And you don't need to worry about this right now because look, I've got a system in place and we've put reminders in. So thank you for making sure we don't go through the same thing as last year, but now we're done. We've got a plan. We're good to go.
I love that. I think what I would be tempted to skip over, I'm thinking, okay, Katie 1.0, or even Katie now, I would be tempted to skip over that piece, which is probably equally as important as doing like the brain dump, if we can call it that, is because just like you said, we're thinking about our biology and how our brain is working in that moment. We're writing it down. Maybe we're starting to feel a little better getting it out of our head. But then again, we're like, oh, everything's urgent. Everything's important. I can't prioritize. I don't have time. I'm tired. I'm hungry. My stomach's like starving. I haven't eaten. I have to go to the bathroom. All these. And then it's like, hold on. What's really happening here is our nervous system is getting completely hijacked. And it's tempting to try and like hustle through, push through. I only have 5 minutes before the baby wakes up or before I like pick my kid up from school or whatever. But taking space and margin allows those biological parts of our brain, which you just shared with us, to like not be hijacked anymore, for our cortisol to go back down. Moving our bodies is one of the most effective ways to do that. Like walking into a different room, not looking at your list.
That's why I'm saying like there's this little 10-minute loop I can do with my dogs outside. I'm like, we're doing a lap. And it's something I just learned last week, which yes, I'm going to go there because I know we have a lot of women listeners. Another great thing to lower your cortisol. There was a doctor that gave this whole talk at this conference I was on the relationship of your libido. So I'm just saying, if you've got a partner around and,
there you go.
You got 10 minutes to kill. That will do wonders for bringing that cortisol down as well, and to just kind of not have everything feel so urgent.
Yeah. And I will say anytime, even if it's just taking an environmental, like moving into a different room. And I know there's something about walking too, because your eyes move bilaterally. They move in a very specific way that like, again, triggers the like, okay, your body's feeling safe. And then anytime I come back to the list, which by the way, I learned this from you and I do this and I love it, I can see it with fresh eyes. And I feel like I'm a completely different person. Like, I'm like, oh, I can look at this objectively now and be like, just like you said, okay, we'll plan that for October. We'll set that reminder. Actually, this is something I need to remember every time this year. So I'm going to put it on my calendar and do it every October. And I feel like there's no amount of like pushing or trying to push through that nervous system dysregulation in those moments that allows me to think that strategically, because you can't access that part of your brain, the executive function, planning, organizing, prioritizing, when your nervous system or your brain is
Now, if
hijacked.
you are in that fight, flight, or freeze state, you will not make rational decisions. You can't. It's impossible. And that is when, and I get questions from women all the time, and they'll come on, and I can read it in what they're writing. Everything is urgent, important. Like, and I start escalating too. I'm like, oh, they're writing me this message when they are in fight, flight, or freeze. Because then they'll send me the list of all of these things have to get done, and they'll send me a picture of it. And I see stuff on there. I'm like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But they're writing it when they're in that state and not giving themselves the space to walk away, to then come back and get themselves calmed down, regulate their nervous system, get out of fight, flight, or freeze, and come look at something with fresh eyes to go, okay, not all of that has to happen today.
That's so smart. And again, there's no like, we're always looking for that strategy, right? That hack. How can I get more done? And I'm like, go take a walk, go find your partner, go move your eyes left to right, literally anything. And then come back. You don't need some crazy, just do that. And then your brain's like, oh, we can do this. We can figure this out. I'm not saying it's not going to be tough. There's still moments where you're like, oh, how am I going to get this all done? But man, that works wonders. I love that. And I love how it works with our brains, not against it.
People will say, oh, women are just so emotional. They, everything is this, that, and I'm like, yes, because our brains have a larger emotional center. And so rather than even just having that awareness allows us to don't feel bad about that, right? Like, it's a gift that we have that. I would hate to lose what I think, one of my superpowers is great compassion and thoughtfulness and I'm thankful that I have that. But then it also means that I might over exaggerate how I'm feeling about some things or allow myself to get overwhelmed when I'm feeling out of control, right? But then if knowing, oh, this is my brain doing exactly how it's built to function. Okay, great. What tools can I use now to kind of get myself calmed down and get back on track again, which is why I love that. Just go move your body for 10 minutes.
That's so awesome. So we are in August as this episode's coming out. And I know you and I have talked about this. This is part of your story. It's like, this is sometimes, I feel like the time of year, summer, like the busyness is kind of slowing down. And we have this moment of like clarity kind of hits us in the face. And we're like, I had these big goals in January and actually forgot about half of them. And the others, I'm not anywhere close to that. So they've slipped, right? And that happens to all of us. So I would love your thoughts on why does this happen and how can we pivot without feeling like we failed in those moments? Like, oh, I'll wait till next January, or, oh, I'm such a failure. What's the point? Like all those thoughts.
The timing of it is, there was I forget who I learned from. I think I was listening to maybe a Mel Robbins podcast like a year or two ago. And she was sharing all this interesting scientific studies around September because it's back to school season, right? And so, if you're navigating that in your traditional school calendar, that September is basically replacing January. Like, there's more New Year energy in September than we hit in January. And when I kind of sat back and thought about that for myself, I was like, yeah, I do feel more of an urge to like start fresh, to do like with September than I do in January. I think because I'm also holiday hangover, it's the middle of winter, like I don't have the energy, that kind of capacity. So first and foremost is I always want people to understand goals, projects, whatever you want to label them, your dreams, all of that, do not have a fixed start date, right? It's not like you can only do them in September, or we only do it in January, or we only do it in February. But unfortunately, we live in a world that kind of creates those two typical starting places, September or January. And so we're subtly, through advertising and all of that, we're subtly being told, this is your time to start over, or this is the time to plan. And so first realizing that never has to be the case. Like, you could create a 12-month plan anytime you darn well feel like it, right? You could do it in April. You could do it in November. To really release yourself from a predetermined date for starting things. Now, let's talk about maybe you did get all excited and created some wonderful thing in January of these are all the things that I'm going to do this year, right? And now you're got that new year energy and you're like, oh, I didn't do any of those. And I'm feeling really bad about it. Well, the first thing I always ask people is, okay, what systems did you put in place for yourself that number one reminded you of these often? Right? Did you write them in that cool journaling book that you got and now it's sitting on your bookshelf and you haven't looked at it since January? Well, if that's the case, then release any guilt from that, right? Just as I don't remember what I wrote in my gratitude journal 9 months ago, right? Unless I went and looked at it. It may just be that you were taught how to create a really cool plan and you got all excited and did it, but then no one showed you, now, how do you bring this into weekly and monthly rhythms that you're seeing it and that you know how to basically protect your calendar to support you to reaching those. So if no one's ever taught you that, then stop feeling guilty about the fact that none of those things were there. This is not a skill that you're either born with or born without. I personally believe nobody's born with it. It's something that they're taught. Someone shows them, hey, here's a great path and tools that you can put in place to support you with that. Now, the second thing may be, maybe you do have that and maybe you're seeing it and you're still going, things haven't happened, like it hasn't happened the way I wanted it to. Well, in that case, now we get to dig in and say, okay, why? Maybe they really weren't your goals and dreams to begin with. Maybe they were somebody else's. And you kind of got guilted or shoulded into thinking, this is the year I'm going to declutter my whole house because your friends were, and they're shaming you into doing it with them. But you were kind of like, that really wasn't a priority for me this year, and my time went elsewhere. So if that's the case, again, we get to release the guilt. Now, it may also be the case that something happened in life that you didn't know about when you created that goals for your year, right? I don't know about you, but I can't remember the last time I planned a day that went exactly the way I laid it out, right? I mean, things happen. And so it may be, and I'm thinking to, several years back, I had big plans for a particular year. And that March, we had a terrible tragedy in our family, and my niece passed away unexpectedly, and it derailed the entire year. Well, the last thing I'm going to do is beat myself up for the things that I didn't do because I needed to shift my attention, my energy, my emotions to something far more important that was far higher priority than when I created my plans. And so the only reason I encourage people to even go back and assess why didn't these things happen is so that then they can take that knowledge moving forward. So we're either going to let go of the guilt because we go, well, here's why. And now I know. And great, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Or if it's, oh, maybe I am missing those systems. Okay, well, what am I going to do differently this year so that I learn what I need to learn to accomplish this? And so anytime I'm looking back, it's strictly from a let's learn from this experience, not a let's beat ourselves up experience at all. And then the good news is you get to create a plan today, right? You don't have to wait till January. You don't have to wait till September. You can start to make those decisions today, and you don't have to be stuck to when the society tells you is the only time that you can set goals for yourself.
That is so freeing. Even if we know this on paper, it is so, like when you said that, I like teared up. I'm like, I can do anything anytime. I don't have to wait. I don't have to wait. You mentioned some really relatable and common scenarios to the reasons why we're not reaching goals, desires, all these things. And one type of person that keeps coming up for me and in my world, whether it's a student, myself, a friend, is the woman who is working toward her goals, but it's not happening on her timeline. It's not happening as fast as she wants or as fast as she hoped. So my question for you is, what do you say to the woman who is looking at her systems and going, well, I am doing a little bit here, a little bit here. I have been pretty consistent, where in the past I haven't been, and still acknowledging the progress, but still not happy.
So this is not going to true for everyone, but I would probably say 99% of the time when I see this, it's because what they were expecting was completely unrealistic to begin with. And that usually comes to be because we are doing what I call planning in a vacuum, where they have this goal and they're like, okay, I know how to break this up a little bit. So if I just spend 4 hours every single week working on it, I'm going to hit my finish line at this time. That's planning in a vacuum, meaning if you are not then taking a step back and saying, okay, do I actually have 4 hours every single week? Does my life show that this is a reality for me? Because even just saying I could find 4 hours, because then you start going, God, if I just did, 4 days a week for 1 hour, or 7 days a week, like you start running the numbers and you're like, of course I can. But if you haven't sat down and said, hey, these are the commitments you've already made, the reality is you don't have consistently 4 hours week over week over week. It's like shoving a square peg in a round hole. And this usually happens because of the way most people are, quote, planning today is they go look at their Google Calendar or iCal or wherever, and all that's on there are appointments with other people, right? Their calendar is showing, oh, look at that. I have, this on Mondays, this on Tuesdays, but, nothing else there. What's not on their calendar is, maybe over summer break, your kid's asking you for a snack every 15 minutes, the trips to the vet, the driving to all the activities, the time at the pool, like life is not fully represented on your calendar. Just as if you were to, look at how much money is in your bank account right now without looking at the list of all your pre-scheduled bills that are about to go out, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm a millionaire. And then 2 days later, you're like, where did all the money go? Because all the bills, went on auto pay. If you don't have clear visibility into what your true, balance of time is, you plan in a vacuum and you create what seems like such a realistic plan, but it's not, because you don't have the right information in front of you to actually see, or even so much as, oh yeah, and then there's going to be a week off for fall break, and then there's 2 weeks off for the holidays. Well, I'm not going to be able to get 4 hours in on that. And so reality would show you, hey, you know what? It's actually probably going to take you 9 months, not 5, to get this done. And if you can see that at the beginning of your plan, now you're not beating yourself up when it's not going at that pace, because you've seen, well, this is what's physically possible. So I'm going to create that plan. And now I get to feel good that I'm progressing in the way I saw was possible instead of setting unrealistic end dates.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think add in comparison, which if you think about it, so many of our goals, I mean, they're great. Let's just go with declutter the home, right? So it's like you probably follow people you aspire to be like, you want to learn from, you make assumptions about like, oh, they must have gotten this done faster, right? Or, well, she looks like it's so easy for her. And all these other things we think. And then we're like, okay, I'm making progress. I'm feeling good. It's slow but steady. And then we hop on Instagram and we're like, look at her. Her home's perfect. And she's got 18 kids and they all match in these perfectly white linen outfits. And then you're like, oh, I stink. My kids, like, I have a pile of laundry over there. And then it's like we kind of go down this rabbit hole of I stink. I'm never going to reach my goals. This is the worst. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure it out? And I think we personalize so much of that. And it's not getting us anywhere. I'm telling you, the less amount of time I spend on social media, even though I feel like I've been pretty intentional, like I'm in and out, like think of it like walking through a door, like I'm walking through a door to go do something. Yes. And then leave. But then I'll see someone, I'm like, wow, she's got beautiful skin. What does she have?
What serum is that on her counter?
What serum is that? Oh, that. Yeah. And I'm like, Katie, snap out of it. You have serums you like, you use, they're great. Okay, just be done. And it's so tempting to not be like the next thing, right? Whether that's moving toward a goal or the product.
Yeah. And we're bombarded with a phrase I cannot stand.
Oh, tell me.
Which is we all have the same 24 hours in a day.
Ah.
No, we do not. We all have 24 hours in a day, but we do not have the same, right? Like I know there's a woman in my program, she just sent me an email the other day. She has 11 children. We do not comprehend the same 24 hours in a day. And nor am I going to pretend to tell her, well, why can't you just blah, blah? We don't have the same 24 hours, right? And so anyone that's trying to make you feel bad by doing that, we all have the same. You could just get up at 5 a.m. Anyone that's putting that message out there, get them out of your feed, because none of that is true. And spoiler alert, waking up at 5 a.m. has no direct impact on your success or worthiness as a human being. It just doesn't. It's summer months. I don't get up
Say
at
it
5
again,
a.m.
Megan. Say it again. Seriously, we need to hear this because everyone on social media, with the exception of Megan, says that. Really, they do. And it does nothing but make you feel bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, you feel awful. And then I always kind of wonder, I'm like, well, what time are you going to bed? Because now if you're depriving yourself of sleep, maybe I am getting more done at my 3 hours than your 6 because I get a lot of sleep. And so when I show up to do stuff, it gets done pretty quick and pretty high quality because I'm rested. Like, right, we're never looking at the full picture when that's why I get really frustrated with that.
That's such a good point. We're never seeing the full picture when we're on social media, and we're seeing the highlight reel. And I think sticking to these tried and true strategies. I mean, here's the thing. Sometimes they're not super flat. They're not flashy. They're not like this immediate, before and after photo, but they get you results. And you don't have
It's not sexy.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. But they get you results. And if that's what you want, you have to, sometimes rewire some of these beliefs. You got to declutter some of the stuff on your feed and influence and FOMO or whatever. And you just have to keep taking that one next step. So my question is for those who are like, even though it's August, but that September, I will say you're right. There's something of that New Year's vibe in September, like the fresh start clarity, or someone who's craving that in their season or transition between summer and school or whatever. What is one small shift that you would say, hey, do this week and you will gain more of that clarity and you'll feel better when it comes to your time, where it's going?
Yeah, I think a quick win that people can do every week to start to have, again, that clearer picture of how much time do I really have is just for 1 week. I want you to go into whatever your calendar tool is. And at the start of the week, I want you to put everything that you know of that is happening with your time and block out your reality in your calendar. Meaning, if you wake up at 6:30, you're not in the 5 a.m. club, right? And you know that the first hour and a half of your day is feeding people, getting breakfast, cleaning up all of that, actually put in your calendar. Okay, yeah, from 6:30 to 8, make the appointment, label it, breakfast time with kids, house, whatever. And then if you go on a walk with your dog at 8 to 9, literally put everything that you know that is kind of always happening into your calendar. Create a calendar showing all the reality that you're aware of. And that one small thing is likely going to give you so much awareness of, well, that's why I haven't started on that big project. This is just my daily life. And I'll usually tell people all right, I want you to look at your calendar right now before you add all that in. Tell me how much free time you think you're going to have next week. And they'll usually come back and they'll be like, yeah, it looks like I've got a good 20, 23 hours free time. Great. Now go do what I just talked through. Put all that in. How much free time do you have next week? And they'll come back. They'll be like, oh my God, I only have 5 hours.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Because when we see all that, quote, white space, I have all the time in the world, but our calendar most people's calendar, unless they've learned how, is not a reflection of their reality. So just do that for yourself. And if you're a paper planner person like I am, do it with your paper planner, but start to give yourself the awareness of how much time is actually in your bank account, right? Versus what is perceived.
And I think I used to not take that into consideration at all. I'd be like, yes, I'm going to volunteer for that. Sure, I'll take on a new project. And then no wonder we're chronically burned out, overwhelmed, and feeling like failures because we literally bite off more than we can chew. But somehow we are like, oh, it's my fault because look, everyone else is doing it. But they're not. They're not. They're not, right?
Yes, they may be doing that, but they're not doing the 10 other things you are. So again, not the same 24 hours.
Okay, so Planapalooza, your online time management event. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite time of the year. See, anytime I do Sing Songy, I'm like, okay, Katie's vibing, I'm into this. Okay, Planapalooza, and I'm sorry, I don't have a singing voice, so you just have to turn down the volume. So Planapalooza is coming up again. A lot of listeners have already been. We've got some new listeners who haven't been. For someone considering joining or coming back, tell my listeners about it because I know where I'm going to be there. So tell my listeners what to expect.
Yeah. So it's the only time I do it all year. It'll be late October. At the time we're recording this, I don't have the exact dates, but it's always like around the third-ish week of October. And it is a live online event. So you can do this in your pajamas. You can, people that do this year after year now are starting to get like Airbnbs and getting together and like doing it as a community, which I love. But it is where I teach my proprietary, I call it the annual planning process. But again, you have permission to pick whatever 12 months you want. And we intentionally do this in October because we're actually planning out for 2026. Because I don't know about you, but I know as soon as trick-or-treating is done here in the States and November 1 hits, it's like, gentlemen, start your engines through November and December, right? And then we roll into January 1 exhausted, and then we don't really think about planning till February. So give yourself the gift of starting to get prepped for 2026 before all of that happens. So everything is recorded. When you get your ticket for Planapalooza, you get to come to the live event, but no, you also get all of the recordings. So you get to come back and revisit it and re-listen to sections. And at the end of the 2 days together, you are going to have not only that kind of outline for 2026, but then you're going to have the systems in place and know, how do I then make sure that this time next year I have either made progress on the goals or I've changed the plan intentionally because something came up, right? And you're not all of a sudden looking back 9 months ago going, I forgot about that. And it's done in a very thoughtful, intentional way, and it incorporates all the parts of your life. So home life, if you run your own business like Katie and I, it's going to incorporate that. If you are a caregiver, it's going to incorporate that. If you're working a corporate job, it's going to, you'll bring all of those realities in. So I like to tell people, you bring your inputs, which is your unique life, everything competing for your time. I will teach you the system, and then you're going to build your unique output, which is what your 2026 is going to look like, which is going to be different from mine. But we all get to use the same system to create that together.
I love it. This is one of my favorite events of the year. I think this is my fourth time participating as a speaker, third or fourth time, and maybe even I've done one extra time as a viewer of the summit. And I always end up catching most of the recordings. I love to join live when I can, but because of my schedule, right, I just hit the recording. So I so appreciate that being an option, because I know so many summits out there, they're like, you have 2 hours to watch the video. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, you get all the way through to the end of the year. The live 2 days are all myself teaching the process, but then we also have a number of guest experts, which Katie, thank you for coming back and being a guest expert. And what's nice is all of those are pre-recorded. And they're all very specific topics. So you may not decide to listen to every guest expert, right? So we bring in people that kind of relate into a lot of the goals or ways that people spend their time. So Katie always delivers an amazing training for decluttering. I always learn from it every year. We have someone coming in that's going to be talking about some financial planning, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, I want to get my finances together. Or, hey, I'm getting my calendar organized, but digital. I need to do a digital declutter. So we have a number of experts that pre-record their trainings that you can just consume, one a week over the next several months. So it really is customized in a way that you can consume the content that's relevant for you and in a way that fits into your schedule.
And I just have to applaud you, because what you're delivering in this, I'm not sugarcoating it, it is like top level. I'm like, thinking back. So when we had our business, we would go to pay for seminars, right? And my husband and I are chiropractors. We go to wellness seminars to learn from that. I mean, these would be thousands of dollars, easy. And you know this too. And even if I were to go to a time management event live somewhere, it would be thousands of dollars and they wouldn't deliver as much gold as you. So what you're able to pack into this online event, and it's so accessible to so many of us. Like you said, I'm in my PJs half the time too. It's so incredible.
I promise I won't be in mine, but
even if you were, we'd be here for it. So I just applaud you, and I just so appreciate your intentionality through your teaching and sharing these. Like you said, this is like proprietary stuff. Like, this isn't just like, hey, I read this in a blog and I'm going to share it with you type information. Like, you do the research, you know your stuff.
It's backed with a lot of research. And every year things change a little bit, right? Because I'm always learning. So like this year, a little spoiler teaser alert. I mean, everyone's talking about AI, right? So I have a new section in Planapalooza for this year where I'm going to be doing some education around that. Where does it fit in? Where does it not fit in? And then I'm going to be giving you some actual tools that I have built myself for AI to support a lot of the common struggles that women have when it comes to planning out big projects and all of that. So that'll be something brand new that you'll be seeing this year in Planapalooza as well.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I think we need to learn from experts because it's like limitless and it's kind of scary, AI and all the things it can do.
I've
So use it for good.
Significant amount of time and dollars in learning it myself this year, including testing out a lot of these AI planning tools and all sorts of things. So I am coming in equipped with knowledge to really help hopefully make sure people don't go down the path that's not going to serve them and steer them in the right direction for that as well.
Yeah, awesome. One thing I learned really quickly with AI is it's not always right. And you have to fact check it. And even still, it's like giving me really poor advice. Sometimes you just like, what would it say? And I'm like, oh, this is not good advice at all. I hope no one actually does this. So yeah, it's true.
Especially if you don't know how to work with it. And I'm always testing it because I'll go in sometimes and be like, hey, what would Megan Sumrell tell me to do in this situation, to see like, it gives really bad advice on saying that this is what Megan would tell you to do to plan. I'm like, I would never tell someone to do that.
You're like, just come straight to me, people. Don't use AI wannabe Megan. All right. Well, I'm super excited to be there as a speaker, I should say. I'll be teaching a workshop on why you're always tidying but never caught up. And I'm pretty stoked about this one related to time management planning. It's gonna be great. Good to be back. Okay, wrapping up. Last tradition. And just for fun, what's one item in your home you would never let go of and why?
Like a physical object?
It could be any. Some people say family or pets.
I just feel like it's a given. I'm like, well, of course.
Yeah. It could be an object.
I have to be on brand, right? You will take my paper planner. You will pry this out of my cold bed. Yes.
That's so on brand for you. I love it. Your planner. Oh, that's just too cute.
Nothing would happen without it. So yeah.
I hear you. Megan Sumrell, thanks for coming back on the show. I can't wait to be in Planapalooza with you again this year. All the listeners listening, if you are listening to this before September 1st, so through the end of August, Megan has an early bird special. You can get tickets for on sale for, I don't know, half off or so, $47. Best 47 you'll ever spend.
All the recordings, the live, the workbook, everything. It's cool.
If you're listening after September, still get it. Price goes up just a little bit, and I'm telling you, it's still worth everything. So hope to join us all there. And thanks again, Megan.
Thank you.